Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to the award-winning Serious Privacy podcast sponsored by TrustArc. Please welcome your hosts, Paul Breitbart, Ralph O'Brien, and Dr. Kay Royal.
Hey, and welcome back to another week in privacy. And with Paul away this week, it's down to Kay and I to initiate the proceedings. And we're actually initiating a little bit late this week. We're actually recording at the weekend. Dedicated all what? Mainly because I've been out ill. But there's a lot to talk about this week with a number of fines and judgments and things coming out of the court and just general musings on the way things are working in the world as well. Stay tuned for a week in privacy with myself and Kay, because my name's Ralph O'Brien.
And I'm Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. One day I'm going to say privacy just to kick them up. But seriously, Ralph has been down with a head cold this week. I'm not going to say a head cold, but it's Sunday and I haven't had my coffee yet. We did a birthday party for my youngest grandchild over the weekend, and we decided to have it here because Dazzlin and all of her kids have been sick, so she didn't want to have it at her house. So we had to all of a sudden get my house ready for it. So this is life, people, right? This is life. And that's going to be our title this week. This is life.
This is life, yeah.
I was almost going to say our unexpected question should be, do you prefer a head cold or a stomach flu? But I'm not going to go there because I think I'm going to be daring the fate. So here we go. We are going with, do fish get thirsty?
I suppose fish get thirsty in the air, like you remove them from the water.
I don't know the answer to this. I'm like, everything on earth has to have water or it can't survive, right? Every living thing. So fish are living things. Do they have to have water? They absorb everything through their gills, which gets their oxygen, I guess.
It's one of those questions that I suppose if you were a biologist or you feel like you should know the answer to as a rational human being of a certain age. But, well done. You've truly terrified me with existential knowledge gaps already. We've only started.
Paul's going to come back after 2 weeks with us and be like, what the heck have the two of you been doing? The two of us have been paying attention to work. That's what we're doing.
That's true. Yeah.
Paying attention to work. So let's see what we have this week. Ralph, do you want to start on anything that is you know what? Before you do.
Okay.
You've put a teaser out on LinkedIn of people to rebranding as Such Sweet Sorrow. What happens? Rainbow Consulting is saying goodnight. So what's happening there?
Perhaps a bit of personal news. Yeah, I suppose by the time this comes out, it'll be nigh on happening. Yeah. Now, I started my business, Rainbow Consulting, all the way back in 2017. And Rainbow Consulting, it's actually been a bit of an annoyance to me. My grandparents growing up showed dogs at Crufts, which is our big dog breeding show here in the UK. And all the dogs went under the title Rainbow Aurelia, Rainbow Rising, but Rainbow spelled Reinbo, as in an anagram of O'Brien.
Oh, I like it.
So when I started my company, it was Rainbow Consulting Limited, but I've spent the last 7 or 8 years now having to say rainbowconsulting.com, but not rainbow like that, rainbow like this, which is a thorough annoyance. And I'll be perfectly honest, I don't think many people knew about my brand at all. Most people just asked for Ralph O'Brien.
Right.
But collaborating with Paul and Kay has been such a joy that with some announcements coming out, I'm going through a little bit of a rebranding, and Paul and Kay have very kindly allowed me to use the Serious Privacy brand. So very soon, On April the 5th, Serious Privacy Limited will replace Rainbow Consulting.
Woohoo! And everybody clapped and cheered. Woohoo! And I finally, not that anybody ever knows it, because I don't do outside consulting, I finally set our company in the U.S. So it is official. I had to do it for the contract. They're like, hey, what do we put down? I'm like, shut up. I'll get it. Because I don't do external consulting. So it was never that big of an issue for me. Although that meant that the sponsorship payments went under my personal name, which counted as income.
Oh, damn.
No, they know what we're doing there. Very interesting. Okay, let's start a little bit with, what are you seeing over there? I've got a bunch of little like breadcrumbs. Nothing that's major, maybe a few surprises, but it's like little breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I've got a few. I think the first one is, I don't even really know whether this is a story or not, but up until recently, the biggest fine in Europe was the Meta International Transfer fine, which is in the billion. But before that, it was the Amazon Luxembourg fine for 854 million. Now, Amazon has been fighting that in court, and they've won in that the court has decided that the Luxembourg Data Protection Authority was on the point of law to issue that fine and that penalty because of the data protection infringements. But they weren't right because of due process and not considering other enforcement options. So the fine has been cancelled, but the Luxembourg Data Protection Authority are right on law and needs to go away and have another go. So the story continues?
The story continues. That's a big story, though. That one to continue, right? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so that's a rather big one. The other big one they're talking about is a one from the CJEU, the Court of Justice of the European Union, that they're calling Brillen-Rottler, which is a German company. And this one is an abuse of rights one. So, as people know, the right of access and the right of subject access is something you can claim in order to get a copy of your data. But like any rights, it's got limitations. And generally speaking, in Europe, we've consistently held that controllers should consider them purpose blind. They don't really need to consider the purposes or the motives as a prerequisite for responding. And I think that's the same after this Brillen-Rottler case. But there is now this idea that controllers can push back if they can obtain clear evidence that there's a sort of a systematic pattern by the data subject in order to generate legal claims rather than genuinely exercising their data protection. Right. So there is this idea of excessive or manifestly unfounded in law, which basically means you should be putting in your subject access requirements to look at your data and claim other data protection rights like accuracy or restriction, or you shouldn't just be doing it to gather evidence for legal claims because a different legal process should apply. But what's interesting in this Brillen-Rottler one is it looks like the data controller, it was an individual in Austria actually, that subscribed to a newsletter of an optician company, Brillen-Rottler. And they sent a request under Article 15 asking for a copy of the data, as you do. Brillen-Rottler refused it and said it was abusive because they'd done their research on the individual and looked at blog articles and lawyers' newsletters and showed that the individual systematically subscribes to newsletters and submits requests for compensation and requests for access. The individual obviously said their request was legitimate, claimed compensation of €1,000 for non-material damage, but the court had said, go away. The court had said that Brillen-Rottler was perfectly entitled to go and get this open source, publicly available information on the individual and to refuse their request as being manifestly unsounded because they're just doing it for compensation requests. I don't know how you feel about that. Do you feel that limits our rights as data subjects, or do you feel that is legitimate on behalf of the business because we don't want to be dealing with spurious requests and spurious claims?
I don't know how I feel about that. There's good things to say about both sides. Right?
Yeah.
I initially fall on the side of companies for legitimate interest. But on the other hand, I am an American.
Whereas putting in a claim is part of the culture, right?
Exactly, right. So see how that one falls out.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've always said that you shouldn't really ask them why. They're purpose blind. But then the law does say you can refuse them if they're manifestly unfounded. So we do have an interesting situation in law, which you can say no for the wrong reasons, but you're not allowed to ask the reason.
Yeah.
Which is a sort of a very odd state of law, really, when you think about it. So I've always said if they just say, oh, I just want a subject access request, you've got to go ahead and comply. But if they say in their request, I want a subject access request because I want to take you down and I'm doing this to annoy you, you can say, no, it's manifestly unfounded. I always advise data subjects to just keep to the words of the law and don't actually give their motives. But this is a company that's actually gone and done public research on the individual in order to say no. But that's the way the court stands. I think it's just an interesting interpretation of existing law.
Yeah. Agreed.
I guess the other big one over here, OpenAI, the Italian court has overturned the 15 million GDPR decision there. It was actually the first generative AI decision in Europe again. This is an interesting one. So again, we're seeing there are a lot of court decisions now not going in favor of the data subject. This was for training ChatGPT without an adequate legal basis. The authority ruled that an AI breached principles of lawfulness, accountability, but the OpenAI appeal was about a disproportionate and would undermine Italy's public ambitions to adopt AI.
Yeah.
And the Court of Rome upheld the appeal. We're seeing a lot of decisions at the moment that, again, are looking at, they just don't seem to be going the data subject's way.
I was going to say, if they explain their logic at all, at least their final ruling comes down and you can figure out why they decided one way versus another. We're not seeing a lot of logic, which is one of the things that you and Paul have said is interesting about the U.S. because we are very public about the reasoning behind court decisions. Not really first court decisions like trial courts, but courts of appeals and things like that. We're very public about it. Just unfortunately, when things go to our U.S. Supreme Court, which y'all may know is the highest court across the board. It's the highest court for federal lawsuits. It's also the highest court for state lawsuits because you can always appeal from the state Supreme Court to the federal Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. So very public about our rationale. Just unfortunately, we interpret things very narrowly. So you may see wonderful case, maybe not wonderful, but you may see significant cases going in front of the United States Supreme Court. You're very excited that finally we're going to have some cohesiveness here. Half the states go this way and half the states go that way, and we really need a decision. They will interpret it so narrowly that you can't apply it to any other facts because the facts of that case will never replicate itself and you can't apply it to other facts. You can just try. This is similar to this case and this because they narrow the ruling so much because of technology and the state of the law and unique circumstances of the claims. Many of them just don't understand the full scope of the technology. And I'm not going to say that the justices are ignorant at all. They're really not. We all know it takes a lot of learning in privacy and technology to fully understand why cases don't fit under certain of the laws that are out now. Enforcing them under current laws don't really fit well, right?
No, I agree. I think we're in an interesting situation at the moment where, and I think we're seeing this with your current administration as well, where people do things and worry about the consequences later, and the law takes a number of years to catch up. Things like AI, for example, again, we say AI all the time. AI is moving so quickly, and yet the law takes a long time to follow. Probably be some news here in the UK, actually, as the government has just backtracked a little bit on AI and copyright. The government's position here in the UK was very much one of, AI can use whatever it likes for training data because you want to encourage AI. Obviously, the major artists consider it a plagiarism engine, and therefore don't want that to do that. They want to get paid royalty fees. They want permission, all this kind of good stuff. The government has backtracked on their position, interestingly, but rather than saying, no, we think the artists have won and you should ask them permission and they should get paid royalties, they're now just saying, no, we don't think that AI should just be able to do it, but we no longer have a preferred option on what to do next.
Right.
What's that? That's a non-position.
We're standing in quicksand, but we don't really know how to get out.
welcome to the human race in 2026.
Is someone going to throw us a rope and pull us out? Are we going to try to float ourselves to the top? Or are we just going to hope to hit the bottom and shoot ourselves up? Yeah.
Normally, I'm really positive and I'm the silver lining person. I'm like, let's get the benefits out of this without the harms. But after a week, and you can probably hear it in my voice today on the podcast.
You're struggling to see the sanity.
Yeah, I'm struggling to see the good in the world today.
Right. Okay. Breadcrumbs, right? Breadcrumbs. So a couple of things that happened over here, and we had a few things happen south of the global border as well, but sometimes they're just really fun. I was caught with a headline from the IAPP Daily Dashboard that said that, hold on a second, let me get the exact headline because it caught my attention. A view from D.C., the First Lady takes online safety to the global stage.
The First Lady of the United States,
Yes.
as in Melania Trump.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just had to check.
Okay, did that headline not strike anyone else as strange, but fantastic? Apparently, she is a big supporter of kids' rights and children.
To
We
the
all
children.
talk about who makes the best first lady and all of this, and some of them don't really have initiatives on their own. They're really there to support their husband because their husband is president, even if some people suspect that Hillary Clinton ran the country regardless. There's suspicions. There's no proof. But Eleanor Roosevelt still stands as the number one example of active first ladies for human rights.
Mm-hmm.
She was a driving force behind the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right? One of the big ones. But for Melania, there is a global meeting happening, I guess this next week, of 45 countries or something here. And she has made it clear that she expects there to be a fostering the future together objective for prioritization of personal development of children, unification of efforts surrounding children, technology, and education, collaboration with the private sector, including AI and education, and exchange of solutions encompassing advantages and risks of artificial intelligence. So there y'all go. Look forward to see if anything comes out this next week of the efforts there. But the headline itself caught my attention, and good for her.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm all for people using their platforms for good.
Yeah.
I understand that children merit special protection because they're less aware of the risks. I am struggling with this sort of age gating and age verification approach to the internet we're seeing at the moment, with lots of surveillance companies taking a lot of data to verify identity and age.
Well, and as we talked about last week, the FTC putting out their policy statement on not enforcing against companies online that are using electronic age gating as long as they do ABC actions. I saw your face at that time.
Yeah.
Probably didn't see your face at that time. I saw Rolf was like, not sure about that at all. But
I was lucky. I grew up in a time where the internet was quite different back then. As I said, at the time that there was that old New Yorker cartoon, which on the internet, nobody knew you were a dog. I didn't have the internet under 16. You're right. My internet was 18, 19, 20.
We're not going to talk about how old I was when the internet came. Let's just say I'm older than Google.
Yeah. Yeah. So internet chat rooms when everyone just asked you ASL, age, sex, location the whole time, because people didn't know who you are and everybody was under some sort of pseudonym. So chat rooms are interesting because, okay, you had perhaps a lack of responsibility and a lot of catfishing because nobody was linked to their real identities, which was difficult, but also it meant that people, including myself, could go out and experiment with who they wanted to be and their identities and meet people, some of whom who disgusted you, some of which thrills you, and really explore new worlds that, you know, as a provincial country boy at heart, I'd never experienced and never seen before.
And never in that area. I never participated really in chat rooms or anything. I did take computer coding in college. So we wrote very simple computer programs using all the little diagram boxes and the little prompts and everything. The computer took up the entire basement of one of the buildings. My daddy was trained in computers from the Army. And once he got out of the Army, he consulted back to the Army as a civilian consultant. So he was in computers almost all of his life. And he used to laugh at me with my lack of computer knowledge. Oh, if he could see me now. Actually, he knew I was in this field. He died over COVID. And he knew I was in this field and he loved it. He absolutely loved it. He's like, my non-techie daughter is now in a big tech field, right?
Yeah.
And male-dominated field, both on the side of lawyer and technology, right? And I know some people say law is no longer a male-dominated field. It was when I got in it.
Oh, God.
And
Yeah.
frankly, the statistics show that other than entering new lawyers and entering the legal field, managing partners, big titles that lead law firms or schools or anything are all still men.
You talk about male domination. When I came out of the military, one of my first jobs was working as a technical support assistant in a planning department, and wrongly, the split then was all of these old men who were Chartered Institute of Town and Country Planning, and a secretarial pool of predominantly women in the front office.
Oh, yeah.
But I do remember one of the IT department bringing out computers and giving all of these old chartered planning men computers and saying, you've got computers, you can write your own letters now, you can send your own emails. And I remember this guy storming through to the front office, slamming a dictaphone down on my desk and saying, I'm a professional man. You can't expect me to write my own letters. This is a dictaphone, and that's what the girls in the typing tool are for.
Yeah, it reminds me, I think I mentioned it before, one of the professors at the law school will still, his assistant has to print out the emails and fax them to him, and then he will handwrite his remarks on them and fax them back, which she then has to interpret back into the email and send it off. So that age is not gone, although it almost is. But one of the things I was going to say when we talked about protecting children online and vulnerable adults, I think that should also, at some point, protect seniors too. I know I'm saying this cringing because you can't cut an age off. We all talk about they should stop driving at a certain age too, but what is that? Do we start taking driving tests every year to determine if they can still drive?
The ICO's new mission statement here in the UK is fourfold. It basically says help businesses, help innovation, promote the economy, and then it basically says think of the children. Under the Data Use and Access Act, the ICO's mission statement has changed. It's not really protecting people's rights anymore. It says promote the economy, promote responsible data use, consider how business and innovation will be affected by what you do, and then it says think about the children. Now, to me, that's fine, and yes, I agree we need to think about the children, but it does sound to me like as soon as you get to over 18, all bets are off and you can do whatever you like with the data as long as you're serving business. Yeah.
It's really scary. And I'm going to note that we are at 24 minutes recording. So I'm going to give another headline that caught my eye from this week. I'm not going to go over all the others unless we just read out the headlines so y'all are aware that they're out there. You know what? Maybe I'll do that right now. If you're not following Violet Sullivan on LinkedIn, you should. I absolutely love her. I worked with her for many years as a consultant as she was working for the company. And she put out what she's like. I don't know if this is going to last or not, but I'll try it. So she did her first one last week, brief for the Cyber Week, WEAK. Her headlines are a DOJ engineer allegedly walked out of Social Security Administration with more than 500 million identity records on a thumb drive. One that Ralph mentioned, Meta is killing Instagram encryption on May 8th. Veeam software patch 7 critical backup vulnerabilities that ransom groups specifically target. A supply chain attack from one compromised NPM package to full Amazon Web Services environment destruction in 72 hours. This one I love. AI agents independently hacked systems and persuaded each other to disable controls. No one told them to. And these were administrative assistants like calendar prioritization and stuff. And they convinced each other to break controls. Hilarious story. Hilarious and scary. Researchers found a way to hide malicious commands from AI assistants using nothing but a custom font and CSS. And with the Iran conflict ongoing, regulators are now actively sanctioning state-linked cyber actors. So do you have any headlines you want to read out like that before I get to this fabulous story that's cracking me up?
I actually want to double down on the losing end-to-end encryption from Instagram messages. It was interesting because we've seen a number of news articles on this, internal Meta employees saying this is disastrous, this is a bad thing, we shouldn't be rolling this back. The official line apparently is they're rolling back end-to-end encryption because nobody had switched it on and was using it. But when you looked at the user interface, it was hidden under 5 layers of...
Right.
So I think this is a good argument for data protection and privacy by default.
Rather than ending it, tell people that they have it and see if they're going to turn it on in the next 30 days before you kill it.
Oh, well, or even just turn it on.
Yeah, or just turn it on. Just make it encryption. I don't use a lot of mail through Instagram, but I guess it's connected to my Facebook account, blah, blah, blah. I know y'all are all shocked that I'm active on Facebook, but it's the platform of choice for some of my other activities. But okay, so this one that gets me, tell me if you like this headline. The privacy of things, how New Jersey Scrap Tire Act impacts privacy. Now, that's not the headline. It says creates a criminal surveillance trap, but it impacts privacy.
Because they are tracking where tires go in order to charge people for their disposal.
Uh-huh.
We had a conversation about this in the UK years ago. It was called active RFID, past point of sale. So the radio frequency identifying tags that you have on product, they quite often put them in packaging to track the product all the way through the manufacturing process to point of sale. But if the RFIDs are active after point of sale to the customer, there was a conversation about whether to track those RFIDs through to refuge disposal, track it back to the customer that had bought it. So if you just abandoned your packaging on the side of the road, they could track the RFID back to who had bought it and give them a penalty for throwing away the rubbish in the wrong place. Is this kind of the same thing?
Yeah, the same thing. They're tracking them through telematics and GPS-enabled manifest software to prove the journey of the tire to the Department of Environmental Protection from the time it's made to the time it's disposed of. It runs into the New Jersey A3950, which passed in 22. It prohibits employers from using tracking devices in vehicles operated by employees without prior written notice. Most critically, it's not a mere compliance lapse. It's a fourth-degree crime, punishable by up to 18 months in prison and fines of up to US $10,000 and a permanent criminal record.
Nice.
So you have to track the asset, but if you do, you couldn't go to prison.
Yeah, again, mixed feelings. I'm not supporting anyone who throws their tires away and ruins the environment or anything like that. But at the same time, it's just another example of increasing surveillance in the modern world. And I think that's okay. At the moment, our governments are fairly benign, depending where you are.
You say that with a side-eye look at me?
Yeah, but if, let's say, again, I have to go back to World War II. There were more atrocities committed in the Netherlands than in France. And the reason for that is the Netherlands had better record keeping. Like record keeping on people, freedom from surveillance, freedom from data collection can be really important. When you've got a fairly liberal or libertarian government who wants the best for their citizens and it's fairly benign, it's a good thing. But if you are in a group or do happen to want to speak out or dissent, the tools that are available now and the record keeping on us will make that difficult and harder to challenge the status quo. I am a little bit of a rebel at heart in that.
Really?
I do believe in the capability for dissent to make effective change.
You have a little bit of ginger in that hair.
There needs to be civil dissent in order to effect
To have
change.
a true democracy.
Yeah, where change is needed. Yeah, my heroes are the people who are considered quite often terrorists in their time because they stood up for what they believed in to change the needle, to move the needle. And so I think the more surveilled, the more record keeping, the more watched we are, you enter into that panopticon where it becomes harder and harder to achieve change. And especially if the regime changes to one that is more oppressive against certain groups.
Yeah.
There isn't many places to hide. People talk about hiding like you've got something to be ashamed of, but there are plenty of people that just want freedom from, let's talk about the LGBT community, for example. There are plenty of people who might happen to be homosexual, but might be quite happy to practice that in private without making a song and dance about it, right?
Exactly.
So freedom from data collection, freedom from making a thing of it. And so I actually get worried with this idea that everything you do is watched and collected and looked at. And I'm not saying that we should be trying to hide everything we do, because obviously there's a need for the state to catch the bad guys.
There's always the statement of, I have nothing to hide, or if you have nothing to hide, why do you care? That is so stupid.
Yeah, show me your internet history and bank statements, yeah?
You have nothing to hide until someone posts your latest bowel movement on a billboard. Yes, there's trackers that do that.
Yeah, show me your complete medical history, what you've watched on the internet for the last 12 months, and all your passwords to your bank accounts, and then tell me you got nothing to hide.
Exactly. So with that, we're going to let y'all go. It's 33 minutes recording. We're trying to get back to 30 minutes.
Can I squeeze one more in? Can I squeeze one more in?
No.
Please, one more. I always try to do this. I always try and squeeze one more in. Just one more very quick one. Check out a post I saw, and I'm going to mispronounce the name, and I do apologize in behalf, but we're very fond of Indigenous privacy on this podcast. And it's the Kappa Maori AI framework, the world's first Indigenous peoples AI framework, looking at agentic AI in New Zealand. There you go. And then I'll wrap up.
And one of the persons that we had on our Indigenous episode at the IAPP last year was from New Zealand. So love that. All right, now we're going to wrap up. We did that. Y'all have a wonderful day. How do we say goodbye until next time?
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
Now that was Serious Privacy. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app and leave us a review. You can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Blue Sky as Serious Privacy. Feel free to drop us a question or a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace, so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data, and get credible, cited answers based on NIMD research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.